You need to rest. I can't possibly be genuine, right, if I say that from a pulpit to a crowd of people. Unless, 9 times out of 10 of the people in this room, you might actually be saying, does he know what went on in my week? How common is it that somebody could say this to you at any random point in your week, you need to rest, and you'd be like, I know. Pick a day of your week, and if I interrupted your afternoon and said, you need to rest, would your head start nodding? You must know what's going on in my life, Pastor Bondo. You don't even need somebody else to pay attention to you and look at the drooping face or the, shrugged shoulders that have fallen just a little bit. You don't need to read exhaustion on somebody or a yawn to know that they need a rest. Your body does things pretty naturally that tells you that you need a break. Your legs might inform you if you reached that 10,000 footstep mark in your day. Or your brain, if you've been your brain's not necessarily a muscle, but it functions like one. And if you're looking at a screen for an hour or intensely working on a project for a while, it'll start to warn you, I'm not going to keep this going much longer. We will introduce coma-like distraction and behavior if you keep this up. There's things that just go on that say, you can't just keep doing this. You need to rest. God is onto something. Well, he knows, he made us. He's onto something when he gives his people a complete day off, day 7. It's fascinating. You look at history when days off began, like who started the weekend, you'd probably crown that person king. Well, guess what? It's God. He's the first one who came along and said, people should have a day of rest. He invented the weekend. So if you like the weekend, praise God. Another reason, right? But we've got other things to keep in mind when it comes to the Sabbath. The Sabbath day that God implemented wasn't just 6 days of work and 7th rest for your physical body. As reasonable and as maybe natural as we understand, we just can't keep it all going forever, we'll fall apart. It wasn't just for your body, it was for your soul. In part, it involved your body, but as you set down your work, as you set aside all the other things you were busy doing, it's time to find your spot to sit down in the synagogue and sing and listen to the Word of God. The Sabbath was always predominantly for your soul. And today we're going to talk about that vital need for spiritual rest through this look at this commandment. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. God's way of saying you need to rest. It's kind of like he's a doctor, where he's going to give you a command, but it's more of a gift. He knows that you need it. He knows that it's good for you. He knows that it's going to serve you really well. So it's interesting because the Sabbath day commandment is really weird in the list of commandments. It's like a hybrid. It's a commandment and it's also like something ceremonial, like go and sacrifice a lamb to me, that disappears with Jesus. There's something about it that stays, like you'll always need spiritual rest. But there's something else that disappears, like 24-hour day off. Our rest is in God. Our rest is in Jesus. We're going to talk about that today. I think that more than any time ever, maybe we just keep saying this year after year, we have the easy opportunity to be busy. We find it easy to always be doing something. As soon as my brain says, I don't know what I'm going to do right now, my phone comes out of my pocket, like instantly. I don't know how that works. But it's like, boom, there it is, and I've got something to do. It's so tremendously easy. We can spread ourselves thin today like you could probably never spread yourselves thin before. In terms of keeping up with news, keeping up with people, managing investments, doing things just with like the clickety-click of thumbs or however that works, right? We have so many ways to be highly involved and interactive on a wide variety of fronts. You never need to be still if you don't want to, or to be quiet. Any car ride, any car trip is filled with a podcast. Any of this is filled with a something, right? You've always got something now that you can do almost 24/7 when you're not sleeping. And this is like the way our culture, I think, is kind of fallen in love with life, and it's become a norm. There are personality tests that you could take where people come out as achievers. They're the people who like to get stuff done. And I wonder if that's just the norm for all of us. If in some small ways or big ways, we've become addicted to achievement. How guilty do you feel if I didn't get something done in 10 minutes? I mean, that window of I didn't get something done in 4 hours, that was once okay. And now it's like, I didn't get something done in 10 minutes. Like, I feel guilty right now. You experience that? This is the kind of way that our culture rubs off on us. You start thinking about time differently. We can start thinking about day after day after day, and we parcel it down. They used to talk about if something took 5 minutes to do, you'd be really efficient if you just did it because it only takes 5 minutes. So if something just takes 5 minutes, do it right away. I don't think that's even true anymore. We're not thinking of life in terms of hours. We're thinking of it in terms of minutes. And maybe sometimes 5 minutes is just too much to give up. That's what I think. I think we're in seconds mode. This is very fascinating, but it's also a temptation. What does it do to your soul? What impact could this have on your spirit? And not just if you don't go without breaks. If we lived in a lot of societies around the world, a lot of cultures, they have weekends off. In fact, it's good for international markets if we can all coincide our days of work at the same time and our days of rest at the same time. The Arab world is the most recent to join the club and have a weekend off that's in sync with the rest of the globe so that we can all align our markets and get stuff done together. It's more efficient that way. Well, what impact does it have on your spirit? What impact does it have on your soul? It quickly becomes something where as you part and parcel out your life, it becomes that me time. Isn't this like your default mode? That it's my time. And I am feeling guilty because I wanted to do something there. My little achiever was going on, my social achievement was going on, and that was time for me to get something done. I think when you think of a day, you often think of a day as, what am I supposed to get done today? Or what do I want to get done today? I think that's the language we use. And it's me, and it's my time, and it's my schedule, and it really throws me off when one of the kids gets sick, and I have to give up a whole day with them, doing the flu thing. We spread ourselves so thin when one of them blows up, it's like a little crack in the wall of the dam, and the whole flood thing is about to burst. This is the way we've put the pressure on all of our minutes and it's my time, and I have to make the most of it. And you sort of reverse the whole direction of life. You reverse the whole focus is how much can I squeeze out of it, because I better squeeze out as much as possible, because that's the goal. That's life, right? I reverse its direction from life with the most generous, present, involved, caring, and saving God, who may use my plans for today, but he may not. He may have other ones in mind. This is really the topic because in Deuteronomy chapter 5, God's people were about to have a normal life. They were about to begin 24/7 busy mode. They had left their slavery. That was probably pretty hard in and of itself. And then they're out in the desert picking up manna off the floor every morning and walking around. Now they're about to go into the promised land and have families and homes and servants and an ox and a donkey to plow some fields and plant some grain and harvest them later on. Now they're about to get very busy. And Moses in the book of Deuteronomy is giving people a sermon and an encouragement on what life is to be like as we get settled in our new land together. And it's funny because he's talking about these things, they kind of have to vision it. I don't think they fully have it yet. But he says, take that seventh day off and make sure that neither you, nor your son, nor your daughter, does this sound like a lot to manage? You, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male, nor your female servant. We're going to have servants. Nor your ox, nor your donkey, or any of your animals or flocks, nor even the foreigner that resides in your towns. We're going to have cities. We're going to judge ourselves, like have our own governance and ruling. That's incredible. All this new stuff is coming, and we're all going to do it ourselves. They're about to get very, very busy. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of relationships, and it could be exhausting. And God says, on the seventh day, it's a Sabbath to the Lord. It's not just a Sabbath physically, it's a Sabbath to the Lord. It is set apart for God. And then Moses, for the first time, this is the third time the Sabbath day commandment comes up, twice in Exodus, now once here in Deuteronomy. And here in this section, Moses adds this explanatory comment for your Sabbath day thinking. As you rest and shut her down on the Sabbath day, remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and that God brought you out from there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. That's the Sabbath sermon. That's it. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt. Do you remember the whips at your back? Remember the way they controlled your family size? How hard it was to squish your feet in that thick mud day after day. Did you even own the clothes on your back? If they wanted to take it from you, wouldn't they just rip it? You never chose what you wanted to do. You never had a day to yourself. They bossed you around. If they wanted to make it worse, they made it worse. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt. What impact does this have on you? You take a break and you stop. You've heard of a still life painting? You take inanimate objects, put them on a table or something and paint it. Still life. That's what the Sabbath, God is doing this to all the animated things around you. Any animal, any person that moved, everybody stop. Isn't that interesting? Look at them. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt. Do you see the spouse next to you? Do you see the child? Do you see the relative? Do you see the friend? Do you see the work? Do you see the house? Do you see the food from your own fridge? The air you breathe on your own property? The freedoms that you enjoy? This isn't just Thanksgiving Day, but that certainly is a part of it, that you stop and say, I would have none of this if it weren't for God. This all is His. It's His schedule. It's His work. That's His ox. I have nothing to do with it. I would be a slave if it were me. This isn't my family. It's His. Everything looks different. Stop and look at the still life. Isn't this valuable? Can you imagine taking a breather like this? Hello, come to church every week, okay? Taking a breather together like this to soak up the gifts of God and the life that He has in mind for us. And it gets way better than that, because it's not just a Thanksgiving moment to say, whoa, look at all this great stuff you put around us. But it's also a way that you contemplate what happened in that week. And you can think about the fact that I was not that spouse, I was not that father, I was not that friend, I was not that worker. I abused that male servant. I totally mistreated the way God would have me love them. That's His ox. And I was so frustrated when it twisted its ankle and I couldn't finish plowing the field. That wrecked my day. I wanted to get more done that harvest. You see how it gets flipped around? And the whole gift, it's the Lord's. It's the Lord's. It's the Lord's. It's just gone. It's just dead when you don't have that rest. It wasn't just rest for the body. It was a total recharge of what life was all about, a total reorientation to what God has brought to the table for your day and for your week. That's so refreshing. And it's most refreshing because as you aren't, and as you aren't, and as you aren't, as you fail, and as you are not living up to the holy calling God gives you week in and week out, God still says what? I brought you out of there. Not because you are larger people or a stronger people or a smarter people than anybody else. I called you to today. I called you to this by my grace. And that's for the sake of the promised Savior. That's for the sake of Jesus, that you can smell another day of that fresh air. And you can put your hand to that work. It's by my grace. You get to do this in my presence with the life I gave you. I want you to. So that when we step back and fall on God and whatever life He has in mind for me this week, I'm not just falling on a God who's going to be so upset He's going to thunder from heaven when I take a misstep. But I have a God who longs for more rest. Rest in the forgiveness of my sins. Rest that despite me, God calls me to this. That despite me, who does not deserve tomorrow, let alone the Son of God, to come and take my place on a cross and suffer the punishment that I deserve. But He comes and He does it. God is surprising with His grace every time you read it. And He sets us free to do it in His presence with joy, knowing that we depend on God and He is love. And that's an amazing life to live. Brothers and sisters, what we do here in this place, we remember God. That's the only rest there is in this world. If you live with your head buried in the sand, apart from that God, you're never going to rest. But only here do you hear this. Only here. Only in God's Word. Only when you spend that time with Jesus. Sabbath day equals Jesus. Rest is Jesus. Only here. Only with that Lord. Only with that victory. Only with that comfort can you dare approach tomorrow again. And that's exactly what God gives us in worship. It's so beautiful when you think of the flow of the church year, or even the flow of the commandments, that we would say there's only one God in God's commandments, and don't misuse His name, preach and proclaim Him faithfully, and then you get to the third commandment, remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy, where God takes your head out of the ground, and out of your work, out of your stuff, out of your business, and you can say, this life is His. And before you reach the fourth commandment and the fifth and the honor my father and the don't murder and the don't steal and remember the sixth commandment, before you get to any of the other ones, you've got this refreshment that this is His will for me, for these people. This isn't mine, it's His. Oh, then delightfully is it mine to enjoy in Him. Delightfully is it mine to serve. There is nothing menial about anything that you do. It's all ministry. God gave a Sabbath day of rest so that every day would enjoy it. And our church here does the same thing. We come out with the stuff of victory out of the Easter season. We have squished the serpent's head. We have seen the victory over our own sin and death and hell. We come out of it and are empowered with the Spirit to proclaim and confess Jesus boldly. And we get Jesus right with Holy Trinity Sunday, that He is Father and Son and Holy Spirit, and we celebrate that. And now we take it all and we say, and God is not one day a week. No way. That peace that you surpass all understanding, that goes with me for all the others. And if it doesn't, none of it is fun. But with you, I don't know if I can really call it work. I kind of like it. What do you have in mind, Lord? Let's go. Brothers and sisters, this is rest. Rest for your souls. And God knew exactly the kind of gift you needed. And today, I hope you make no mistake about it. He sure knows well how to supply the rest you need. Amen. Please stand.